Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you, Brian. Out of consideration for our speaker and the meeting, there is no talking while they're at the podium. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Dorothy.
My name is Dorothy, and I'm an alcoholic. I thought there was birthdays first, and I was sitting in there thinking, oh, I've got a few more minutes. Patrice, thanks so much for asking me to share this morning. I haven't been here in a long, long time, so it's really a pleasure to share at an AA meeting, particularly at the first of the year. And welcome to Jim and Jimmy, our newcomers and the out-of-towners that identified. I met Patrice a long time ago in Jamba Juice, and for some reason, she said to me, "What are you having?" I said, "I have no idea. I've never been here." And she now calls me Jamba. I'm her sponsor, and that's been going on for a long time. So anyway,
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
it's great to be here. It's great to be sober, and we spent New Year's Eve with some wonderful sober friends, one of whom is here today. And I think to myself, how could I ever have a better life than I have today? I actually saw the parade yesterday and saw one horse at a time. When I used to get up with hangovers, it was a nightmare on New Year's Day. But that wasn't the case yesterday. I got sober in November of 1975. My birth date is November 11th, 1975. And I came in. I was driven here by guilt and remorse and shame, particularly shame. My parents were not alcoholics, but there certainly was alcoholism on both sides of the family. And somehow I always knew about Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know why, but I just seemed to know about it. My mother had a brother who used to drink periodically, and he would go off on these binges. And my mother was the oldest of the family, and she was kind of in charge of the rest of them. And she would go around and try to find this poor guy, a really, really handsome guy. And he had been in the Navy, so they would put him in the hospital in New York, and he would just dry out. And I don't know whether my family didn't know about Alcoholics Anonymous, but there was no treatment given to him. And I often think how sad, because possibly he could have found what you and I have found coming into these rooms and staying in these rooms. When I was young, I'm from New York, and we lived on Long Island. And I used to get respiratory infections all the time. And the pediatrician said to my mom, put a little brandy in milk, and she will get better. And I could have only been about 5 years old, and I remember having on flannel pajamas and sitting in bed. I mean, I remember this as if it was yesterday, and thinking, this is the worst I've ever tasted, and I'll be back to you. And here I was 5 years old, which is what my youngest grandson is now. That's how old he is. So I went to school. I went to private schools in New York and went to work in advertising. And I didn't know why I liked the advertising business so much. My first job was at BBDO in New York. And, women in those days didn't have any type of jobs, really. We were never permitted to do anything more than be secretaries, which was okay. But when I think of it now, talk about a glass ceiling. But there was a tremendous amount of drinking that went on. And I could never figure out why these people were always hanging over the water cooler every morning with their Alka-Seltzer. I think, is that the stupidest thing? Why don't they just have a drink and go home? Because I had to get on the train and go home. So, and quite often the man I worked for would be in the same place that I was in, the ad lib, and it wouldn't behoove me to drink in front of him in a way that wasn't, careful for me. So this went on, and we got a house out in the Hamptons in those days, and I think they probably still do it. You timeshare a house, and a whole group of women went out to the Hamptons, and we would drink for the whole entire weekend. And then we would drive Dune Road. And we had a taxi, because one of my friends' father owned a fleet of taxi cabs, and he gave us a taxi that would only go forward. It would never back up. And all the guys in town loved it. They would leave us their sports cars, and we would get the taxi. But they would designate me to be the driver, because believe it or not, I was the best of the crowd. Even though I drank, I could stand up, and I guess they considered that a criteria for driving the taxi. Excuse me. Anyway, we had a heck of a good time out there. And when I look back on it now, out of 9 women, at least 3 of us were alcoholics. I don't think we knew it at the time. We certainly didn't use that word. Actually, I had a lot of difficulty with that word before I came in to the program, because the word alcoholic to me meant that I was in the gutter, that I was unacceptable, that I was unlovable, unemployable. And of course, none of those words apply. And in the early 80s, Dr. Joseph Perch used to write an article for what used to be the View section of the Times. And he said he was always posed the question, what is the difference between an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic? And his response was, the only difference is the alcoholic cannot predict their behavior. They cannot drink safely. And I thought, what an incredible definition to let women like myself off the hook. By that time, I was in the program and living in the Palisades. But when I first came in, I thought it was all right for men to be alcoholics, but I did not think it was okay for me. The guilt that I carried and the shame when I came in here was unbearable, combined with the loneliness and isolation. I got married at 32 and had our first daughter at 34. And Bill was going to graduate school at UCLA, and we got a new home in Orange County. And all of the women seemed to want to just talk about baking cakes and potty training, and I thought, this is the most boring group of people I've ever met. And then one of them invited me over one afternoon at about 5 o'clock and offered me a cup of coffee, and I thought, well, I'll never come back here again. But I did find somebody up the street that liked to drink the way I did, and we would gather the kids together. I only had one at the time, and she had 2, and we would have a few drinks at 5 o'clock. And clearly, the 2 of us were problem drinkers. We didn't call ourselves that, but clearly we were. So this went on, and the reason I talk about isolation and shame is because I got all the things that I ever thought I wanted. When I was single, I thought if I got married, that I would not only be happy, but that would fix me. And it's a very dark day when you get what you think you want, and it's not what you want. It's almost as bad, it was almost as bad for me as the last day that I drank and realized that I was an alcoholic woman, that I had to really succumb to that fact. So here I had a husband who was a good guy, still is, and these one child. We only had one child at the time. There's 5 years difference between them. And the reason I was so guilty and shame-ridden was because I wasn't emotionally there for them. I was physically there. They were dressed well. They were fed well. She was dressed well, fed well. I kept a meticulous home. But I was not present for Arlene. And I know that so clearly today because I have 2 grandchildren, 5 and 7.5. And Arlene, the child I'm talking about, is a terrific mother to those kids and extremely present for them. And so I couldn't figure out why my feelings did not match the circumstances of my life, which was really good. Bill's going to graduate school. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Everybody on the street was stay-at-home moms. We didn't have any child care. We didn't do any of that sort of thing. There was nothing wrong. I had to be careful of money, which I wasn't accustomed to because when I was single, I spent the way I felt like it. But now I've got Solid Sam at home who, wow, oh my God, the mortgage had to be paid and everything had to be paid right on time. And I wasn't really inclined towards that. So it was kind of a shock, to have this guy that was watching everything. And, I couldn't shop or I don't know. It was just, So I would have a drink before he would come home, because he would walk in the door and look at the bills right away. And you would think that we were in debt. We've never been in debt in our lives. Our whatever they call it, the score is 800 something. So I'm thinking to myself, what the heck is with this guy? So the drinking became very important to me. It changed very subtly. And I think that's what alcohol does, particularly for a woman, and particularly the way that we're made. Our physical being, I know I went down very quickly. And the one drink became 2 drinks before he came home. And then I would have to hide the fact that I had had 2 drinks. And I remember once taking a tablespoon full of scotch out of the decanter. Can you imagine having 1 tablespoonful of scotch? And I thought, well, I can't let him know I'm drinking. When he comes home, I can join him, but I certainly can't let him know. So here I had this great life, and the feelings did not match the lifestyle. It didn't match anything. I was going down the tubes emotionally every day, and I was becoming more and more unhappy. And of course I thought I had made a wrong decision in getting married. I only knew Bill 6 months, so I thought it's his problem, and I've made the wrong decision, and now I'm locked in. I'm a Catholic. We're married by a priest. How can I get out of this? And then I had Judy up the street, and we'd be having these drinks at 5 o'clock. So it went on, and when I look at the behavior and the selfishness of those days, because it was all about me. It was always about feeling better. I'd drink to feel better, and then the next morning when I would have a hangover, which I always had, I would drink to feel better again. But I did hold out until 5 o'clock most of the time, except if I washed the windows, then maybe I'd, move it up a little bit. So this went on, and of course it was becoming a problem in our relationship. It was becoming a problem in our home. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I knew about AA. And I thought, well, I can't go with them. I just can't go with them. So I will go to Bible study, and I will go to Mass. I'll say the rosary, which I said anyway. So here I had all these things cooked up. I mean, I'm chapter 3. I bought a shot glass at Gemco. I thought, that'll do it. I'll measure my scotch in this shot glass. Nothing worked. I couldn't get anything to work. I mean, I just kept drinking. But I was very good to Arlene, and I would go to kindergarten and, do all these things with the kindergarten kids. And, oh, God, my head would be coming off my shoulders. And, I think there's got to be an end to this whole thing. Nobody else, though, seemed to notice that I was living this kind of an eternal life. I think my husband was very unaware of it. And the day came, a day in March 23rd, I think it must have been 1972, maybe 73. I think it was 73. It was 73. And my niece was confirmed. And we went to the confirmation, and there was a reception at the home a few blocks from where we lived. My brother-in-law is from Ireland, who I absolutely adore, said to me, 1 scotch won't hurt you. And I thought he's right. I haven't had a drink for this pregnancy. I was now pregnant with Nicole, and I thought, a little bit won't hurt, so I had one. And that set up the compulsion, as we all know. I was defenseless against anything else that week. Bill left for Mexico City. The next morning, I was home with Arlene. I was 5 months pregnant and had a little bit of difficulty in the beginning of this pregnancy, so certainly didn't want to do anything to jeopardize it. But I was defenseless. I took the drink, the compulsion was set up, the craving was set up. Maybe the craving was stronger because I hadn't had anything for several months. So now my neighbors became very aware of the fact that I needed help because I kept calling them. And I fell on the floor, and Arlene, age 5, tried to help me up. I call New York all the time where my family was. Call my sister-in-law, who lived 2 blocks away, Bill's sister. She and I were not particularly close. I liked her, but we were just not close. And she didn't drink heavily. Nobody on that side of the family was drinking heavily that I knew of. And by that Friday, a neighbor neighbors, plural, had to take me into Long Beach Memorial Hospital. my purple robe, 5 months pregnant with one of the neighbors taking care of Arlene. Complete state of demoralization. The obstetrician said to me, "You have to stop drinking." He said, "I am an alcoholic, and I know that this is going to get worse." And of course, the fact that I was pregnant and they knew very little about this, they wouldn't give me antabuse, they wouldn't give me anything. Thank God. Thank God I had a doctor, other than the gynecologist, who wouldn't give me any medicine, and I wasn't looking for anything. But thank you, God, that they didn't give me anything. And I stayed a week, and of course I got to look better. I got to feel better. We went to meetings on a regular basis. I hated to share when I was called on in the group sessions. There was one particular meeting where they gave a cake, and I thought, how could this woman be so excited about taking a cake and turning in a Scotch bottle for a cake? I mean, this place is crazy. And of course, they weren't crazy at all. They were just thrilled that this woman was sober. And the week was over, and I went home. The obstetrician told me I would be fine. He said, "You were at that time, the 5-month period." He said, "I just know you'll be fine." It was okay for him to tell me that as a physician. That's not what I thought. I thought I would have a deformed child. And the guilt and the shame and the isolation set in even worse. So sure enough, Nicole was born in July, and she was fine, although I thought she was deaf. She was home 2 weeks, and we dropped something. My mother was there to help me. Dropped something in the kitchen, and she didn't respond, and I went to the pediatrician, and I said, "Nicole is deaf." And he said, "No." He said, "I know a deaf baby when I see one. I know what you've been through." He said, "This is not a deaf baby." And of course she was fine. She just had a little cold. So I was extremely grateful. After that hospitalization, I decided that I could control and enjoy my drinking. I decided I wasn't an alcoholic. I was just having a hard time of it, so I would control and enjoy it. And that's exactly what I did. I spread it out. That was July. I think I had another drink at Christmas. That was a long time. Had another drink for St. Patrick's Day, which, I mean, how could you be Irish? My maiden name is McGrath. How could you be Irish and not have a drink on St. Patrick's Day? And so that's how it went, and I thought, I'm actually getting better. See, I wasn't so bad. I didn't need to belong in that hospital at all. And we moved from Cyprus down to Mission Viejo, and we got the house in a drawing. We stood around a large table, and the model that we wanted came up, and it was our house, and we got it, and I was thrilled. And I found out later that on one side of me was Barbara F., who was an alcoholic and in the program, and on the other side of me was a woman from Al-Anon. And there I was in the middle. And this is all through a drawing of a house. Can you imagine? And I knew Barbara went someplace at night. I didn't know where she went. In the summertime, I used to hear her calling out and saying, "I'll be back later, girls. I'm going to St. Mary's." She had 3 daughters. And I just didn't think Barbara was that religious. She was going to this church. So I had my eye on her. I liked her. She was a Scorpio, as I am, and a lot of fun, a beautiful woman. I just liked her. I liked the other gal, too. But I was particularly drawn to Barbara, and of course, we know why. So when it came time for me to come into the program, she was the one I went to. And the drinking was spread out. My husband said to me, "You've got to stop drinking." He said one thing to me that I will never forget. He said, "You love alcohol more than you love the children." And to tell you the truth, I thought he was right, because it had become so critical in my life and so important. I thought, how could I love alcohol more than the children? But it really had moved into first place. I knew that. I didn't like the fact he knew it, but I knew it deep down. So along came August of that year, 75, the year I got sober, and we went to a party, and he said, "Do not bring that Scotch bottle home with us." Of course, I didn't listen to him, and I did. And he went to bed, the children were in bed, the babysitter was safely home, and my own party began. And that again set up that tremendous compulsion, and I started then to drink every day. November 10th came along. It was a Monday. I didn't have to carpool, and I fell on the floor at probably 11:30 in the morning. A beautiful fall day. Arlene was in school, and Nicole, our youngest, at 2 years and 3 months, tried to help me up off the floor. And I remember being on that floor and thinking, dear God, please help me. I'll go with them, meaning you. Because by this time I had been to 1 or 2 meetings with Barbara, the neighbor. And I thought, oh my God, I'll have to go with them. But I thought, you know what? It could be worse. I could keep going on like this. It was my moment of clarity. When I look back on that day that I remember with such clarity and such gratitude, that out of my whole life, I had one moment. I had a lot of other moments, all of which I ignored. But I had one moment of clarity that I actually could embrace the truth of what was going on. And I called Barbara, and she was very tough. It wasn't really too pleasant. She comes running over with this little acceptance pamphlet that we used to have. I didn't see this anymore, and I thought, what the heck's the matter with her? Here I'm drunk in the house with a 2-year-old, and she's giving me a book on acceptance. So I thought, I don't know, I picked the wrong woman. But I didn't pick the wrong woman. She was the right woman, and I tried to call Bill. He was at Douglas Corporation, and I couldn't remember the number. So I had to get the operator to dial Long Beach. We lived in Cypress. We lived in Orange County. He came home. He was furious. So by this time, Barbara had come over to see me, and she said, you're going to a meeting tonight. I'm going to go with you to Laguna Beach. We're going to a women's meeting. And I thought, oh, she's so mean. And she said, you either go to the meeting with me or you go to the hospital. And I thought, I'm never going to a hospital again. I'll go with you and with them, no matter how bad it is. So I did. It was a small candlelit meeting. Cold night, November 10th, 1975. We sat in this little room with a fireplace. A gal by the name of Betty B. took a cake for 8 years. I could not imagine how this woman could stay sober for 8 years. I believed her, but I just couldn't imagine it. So I spent half the time in the meeting whoopsing outside. I was so sick to my stomach from the creme de menthe that I thought no one would drink that morning. I thought nobody would ever drink this. But I did, and I was so nauseous and so sick. So the meeting was over. Barbara insisted that Bill go to Al-Anon, so he was across the hall. And the 3 of us went home, and we got a bottle of ginger ale for me. And I went home, and I saw the unfolded laundry. I mean, I couldn't believe that I couldn't even fold the laundry. But there it sat. And all as I can tell you is that was my beginning into this wonderful program. I got up that morning a full-blown alcoholic with a terrific hangover, which wasn't uncommon for me because Sunday night was kind of a leeway for me to have a few extra drinks because I didn't have to carpool. And even though the week was beginning, it wasn't, too tough on Mondays. And I got up that morning a full-blown alcoholic with a terrific hangover and went to bed that night, 16, 17 hours later, a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've never had a drink since. And if that's not the grace of God, I don't know what is. It certainly was not me and Barbara. We got to where we needed to be. I heard what I needed to hear. I saw what I needed to see. I knew I was in, and it didn't bother me at all. In fact, I was so relieved to really find out and to really admit the truth and be with a group of people who seemed to really like me and know what I was going through. And so to the newcomers, Jim and Jimmy, I hope you stay in this program because where else are you going to find a group of people who want the very best for you and want you to be a winner? Rooms full of people like this want the best for people, and I just don't think you find that anywhere else except in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that was my journey. We went the next day to Laguna Beach, Barbara and I, to a women's meeting that was phenomenal, huge women's meeting. About 7,500 women. They were hilariously funny. I asked Barbara what I thought they were going to wear, and she said, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, and we'll sit near the door, and if you don't like what they have on, we'll leave. Well, of course, she had some Al-Anon under her belt, and she liked me, so there we sat. We never left, of course, and the humor of the women were really unbelievable to me. I heard what they said. I understood what they said. I did not identify with a lot of the circumstances, like falling off bar stools and going home with men, because that didn't happen to me because I was in my kitchen. I was just falling around my house. And I had to deal with Solid Sam and the bills, so, I didn't have time to do all that sort of thing. So anyway, it began my journey, and I loved it. I have to tell you, I loved it from the beginning. I got this great sponsor who had like 5 husbands. I was just thrilled with the fact she had all these husbands. She was just such a novelty to me. And she worked such a good program, and she loved to go to lunch, and it was a social crowd. And Barbara said, I can't believe that you like all this. I said, I love it. I mean, because all I had to do was take Nicole to the babysitter, and Arlene was in school, and I could run around with all these women to lunch. Because I had been isolated in my home. I didn't look it. That was the trouble. Nobody could identify that isolation, including myself. So that began my journey, and Bill obviously was pleased that I was sober, I think. A little tough in the beginning. We had to jump through some hoops because now I had some opinions, which I didn't have for a long time. Paint the house purple, pink, whatever. But that was when I was drinking. Then I actually had opinions. I thought, where did this woman come from? I mean, she never used to say all these things. And we moved up to the Palisades when I was 2 years sober. And I thought, oh, how am I going to leave this group that I got sober with? It was like my little kindergarten class. And I thought, oh, I can't leave them. And I would look at the clock every day at 12 o'clock and think, oh, they're all meeting. And here I am. The women in Brentwood were wonderful to me. Corky and just the whole group there. I would go Monday, Wednesday, and Friday because I could pick Nicole up from preschool, and the 2 of us would go off. And Nicole loved it because they would give her cookies, so she thought this was great. And our other daughter was in school, and then I was beginning to pay attention to the children in a different way, in a much different way. I was beginning to pay attention to my home. I actually had some feelings that came about from who knows where. I was no longer anesthetized. I was no longer a Stepford wife, which I really felt that I was when I came in. And I got in with a great crowd in the Palisades, and the reason I say they're so great is because I still know them. I have longevity. I have history with them. And every Wednesday night, occasionally Patrice joins us if her work schedule permits, and we go to Dante's and we have dinner at 5:30. And then we run across the parking lot to the meeting at 7 o'clock, the women's meeting, which is my home group. And we've stuck together, this group and I, through thick and thin. We've raised children and put them in cars and colleges. And I'm a grandparent. I have 2 grandchildren, and the children call me Nana, and they call Bill Papa. And when we were back east in October, the children wanted to know, particularly the youngest one, why we didn't live there, why we didn't live near them. And Oliver also asked me the same question. I thought, what a compliment. What a great thing to have 2 grandchildren say that to you. So we went on, Bill and I will have to tell you, just to back up a minute, that the problems certainly did not cease when I got sober. I not only had opinions, but I was becoming a different woman. I was becoming the woman I was supposed to be, but who knew? And he thought things would look probably better with someone else, so we had to go through the trauma of him possibly wanting to leave. I was frightened to death. I had surgery for cancer in 1982, and right on the heels of that, he thought perhaps he should leave the children and I. And it was a devastating piece of news because I was not self-supporting through my own contributions. And I had 2 children in private school. A woman in Malibu said to me, hang on, don't change the locks. Do everything that you need to do to stay sober. She said, you have someone who doesn't know who you are, and you'll either sink or you'll swim. But she said, in your case, I think you're going to swim. She said, you're a strong woman and you have a strong program. And she said, I think your husband ultimately will see that. And that's exactly what happened. And we'll be married 45 years this July. And I have to tell you, it's just recently that I actually think he's the right guy for me. I'm thinking to myself, is he it or isn't he? I don't know. Some days the jury's out, I have to tell you. Anyway, he does a lot for our family, and he does a lot for us, but he's very different than I am. Very, very different. Very, very different. But he goes to all these AA functions with me, and they like him, and it all, it all works out. But I stay very I stay very, very close to the program, and just in winding this up, I want to tell you a little bit about what I do on a daily basis today as a sober woman. I retired from Marymount High School in 07, and I was frightened to death about retirement. First of all, I didn't like the word, and secondly, I thought, what am I going to do with myself, you know? I've been used to working all these years. It was a great schedule for me when the girls were growing up. Both girls attended high school there, so it was really a great schedule. But it was apparent that I needed to step aside. And I thought, what am I going to do with myself? So little did I know that there are many opportunities out there for those of us who don't working, and I have never had so much fun in all my life. So in order to stay sort of centered and be a little bit more on a schedule, which I always was, I go to a 7 o'clock meeting in the Palisades at least 3 mornings a week. My friends and I always hit the Tuesday one and go to breakfast afterwards. So we have the steps, and then we have fellowship. And on the alternate days, on the other days, I go to other meetings, either at noon or in the evening, and stay very close to the program. I talk to another alcoholic almost every day. I have the pleasure of sponsoring the greatest group of women that I could ever possibly have. I can't imagine, I could never pick one over the other. They're just the most fun, intelligent women and totally dedicated to recovery. And I've never asked one of them to take a commitment, and they all run around and take these wonderful commitments. So I stay very, very close to the program. I get up in the morning, and I have the same little books that I had when I was newly sober. They're hanging by a thread. I've taped them. I've done everything to them I can do. But they're my books. And when when we have fires, the newscasters always say, take what you can't replace. And I always grab those books first because I don't need to replace them. I could replace them, but I don't want to. So in the morning, I get up just as I did when the girls were young, and I read 24 hours a day. I read each day a new beginning and a passage on awakening from the big book. 2 years ago, I went to the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, or what is it, Spirituality of the 12 Steps, that Herb Kay gives at St. Monica's Church on Tuesday night. It was an incredible experience to go through the book in a very, very different way than I had experienced. And I get up and say the set-aside prayer. And then, on awakening asks us to look at the day before us, the 24 hours. What are we going to do? What are we going to, what is our plans for the day? Who will we be? Who will I be? I mean, I've never asked myself who I will be. What is my intention for the day? And then it asks us to divorce our thinking from self-seeking, self-pity, fear, dishonesty. And although I don't always remember maybe what I've read that morning, I can see those words before me. When I drive the car, when I'm in the supermarket, I see those words and I think, I better pay attention here. I'm being a little bit selfish. I can let somebody go before me on the line. I don't have to beat my horn in front of the person in front of me or get aggravated with them. How do I know? Maybe they just came out of the hospital and this is their first day driving. So I pay attention to that, and what I'm working on right now, I won't say for the new year, but my goal is certainly to be less judgmental. I get long periods of time, I call it a sabbatical, when I'm not judgmental, and then all of a sudden it comes back with even more energy than I could have ever imagined, because I think it's gone and it isn't. And I also need to watch isolation, because Bill is retired now and we're both home, and it's easy for me to say, I don't think I really need to go to a meeting today, but I probably should. But now it's chilly out, or it's raining out, or I can make up some darn excuse, the same ones that I have for not going to the gym. And I think to myself, I need to take contrary action here, and I need to get out the door. So I'm watching my behavior on a daily basis, the things that I can make up not to do something. But I particularly stay close to prayer and meditation. I am a Catholic. I've been a Catholic all my life. I'll go to the grave as an Irish Catholic, which is fine with me. I stop into St. Monica's on a pretty regular basis. They have a 12:10 Mass that I like, and I pop in there for 20 minutes. And it's just another leg of my spiritual life. I am so grateful to be a sober woman in this program. And my time is up, but Happy New Year to all of you, and thank you for the nice welcome.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.